They were hosting here.
Ready? Okay. Hello everyone. Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:00 p.m. Welcome. Kevin, I will start with any modifications, additions to the agenda.
I have one, in the information reports under bridge monitoring requests, I'd like to move that into, presentations and discussions because I also want to talk about the event that happened yesterday.
Okay, that is fair. And then I wanted to ask you how we should handle this appropriately for our presentation and discussion items for the ordinance. There are several members here that have signed up for public speaking. Would it be appropriate to ask them to do their public speaking after we have the ordinance discussion?
Well, you could do it however you'd like. I mean, you could move up to the next.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
So that in the interest of not having them stay all evening.
Yeah.
We made a good point that people might not make a decision and think it's right. They might not feel like they were heard.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, have it maybe ask that because you have the authority to do the agenda however the board would like.
Okay.
So if you want to have a discussion about it.
I just want to make sure that everyone feels heard, but I also want to make sure that maybe forward discuss the conversation as to dispel any questions or some of the questions before public comment.
So on the one side, you have a concern about dispelling misconceptions,
Yes.
right? And I feel like we've gone over kind of the details. So at this point, I think I would prefer to let people speak first and
Okay.
have their speak, and,
Okay.
and then we do what we do.
Okay, then we'll just keep it at, is everyone okay with that? Yeah. Okay, then we'll just keep it as is. We can address. Yes. So then I will move forward to public comment. As a reminder to everyone, 5 minutes, please keep your comments to 5 minutes. And that we are unable to engage and respond, but we definitely take your comments into consideration. And if they're having to do with marina ordinance, they'll probably end up in our discussion later on in the thing. So in the meeting. So first I will call Bonnie, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna botch this. Edstrom? Edstrom. Thank you.
Yeah, please come up to me and
Yeah, if you could come up, and if you could limit it to 5 minutes, and I don't like to, I'll try and be very good, but I am in a time, just in the interest of time.
I don't know how many people here are on the board, but I came to say, help me. I am into cats, and for 10 years I cleaned up the port with the stray cats, and it took me 10 years to do it. And these cats I ended up putting in homes, and so the port is clean, all but one cat, and the feeder box. We moved over to the big fir tree behind the museum several years ago and put the feeder box there. And this cat came with the box. And he's an old cat. His name is Petey. And what I'm trying to do is get Petey back into his box. Because unfortunately, some people that don't really care about that wanted my box out of there, and they moved my box out of there, and it's back behind this building here. And that left Petey with no place to go or no place to feed him because the box was a feeder part. And so I'm very distressed about this. And I want the board to help me get the feeder box back under the fir tree. And Petey has been seen several places on the port, running around frantically. And I called the vet's office and asked him what was going on. And they said that he's looking for his box. It broke my heart. So he has no food for 3 weeks, and my husband and I just died, fed him every day, food, and made sure he was okay. And I thought of a thing to do, since some people don't think that the cedar box would be there because it's showing a little bit out of one of the limbs that are coming down from the fir tree. Most of it's hid, but someone suggested to me that we just paint the box green, and that would eliminate that one part that these people don't want. And so I'm here for Petey, and I've got to find him. So I need that feeder box put back so I can feed this cat. He's old. He could die tomorrow. And I'm just taking care of him and letting him live his life out. And basically, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for loving on them, those that need love. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Vaughn. Thank you, Vaughn. Next, I have Brian.
Hello. So, I want to thank you guys for being here because it's, I know some of it takes a lot of, patience to go through a lot of this stuff. I appreciate, being called up to meet with, Kevin and, Christy the other day. That was fun. It was nice to catch up. And, we talked about a lot of stuff, but one of the things I want to talk about today is, the lot 6, which I'm pretty sure is lot 6, which is now the waterfront park. I may have the number wrong, but there was an effort many years ago to turn that into a park, and it was owned by the Port of Hood River. The land was, and it was donated to the city of Hood River, and the city has turned it into pretty much an amazing gem of a park. I go down there. You know, it was a huge battle with every step of the way, and there was a lot of naysayers that were saying, you know, we were trying to get this park down there, that oh, it's gonna be too big, you need to have a smaller, it's too far to. I go down there now to see how popular it is, and people come out from Portland. I see people I don't recognize. I talk to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're coming out from Portland to go to this park and go to Bream or whatever." So it's a huge success, and based on that success, I'd like to propose that the port and city do it again. This time with the Marina Boat Basin and the land protected by the 1995 initiative. With the port losing the bridge revenue soon, I said they, but you seem to be attempting to turn the parkland into a revenue source to pay for its upkeep, which makes sense. But it's difficult because parks and sidewalks don't pay for themselves. They are a benefit, obviously, but they are not a revenue source typically. But with the Marina Boat Basin and the park, I understand the boat basin is starting to break even now, but neither one of them, and the park, of course, is losing money. The city has a larger tax revenue stream to handle upkeep of the Marina Park, especially if the Marina, I missed something here. What I'd like to see done is I'd like to see the port donate the marina and the park space to the city of Hood River. And because they do have a bigger revenue stream from taxes. And I think that there's a proven record of that being a success with the other park. And I'd like to see that done with this whole thing. So anyway, that's my suggestion. Thanks.
Okay, next we have, is it Krista?
Yes, yeah.
Is it Chris?
Krista.
Krista, thank you.
Can I give a handout?
Sure.
I didn't realize there was gonna be so many people. I've done this for 15 years and there was a lot less people. I only have 6, so.
Okay.
Images. That's the last place, guys. Oh, don't get me. Hi, everybody. My name's Krista Shearer. I see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm a proud Hood River native. Growing up right here at the port, my dad was the Commodore of the Yacht Club in the 90s, and I was one of the very first junior sailors to come out of this program. So it's this experience that has instilled a deep connection to this area. A little bit about me, from navigating commercial vessels as a merchant mariner to launching and operating multiple businesses. Most notably, the Sandbar Cafe, if you guys can remember that, to current owner and operator of Summertide Resort, a marina resort on the Olympic Peninsula. It's a testament to my skill in hospitality, but also understanding of local needs. I have a deep connection with this community, and I also believe a proven track record that in not just hospitality, but also in creating vibrant experiences that attract both locals and tourists. So today I'm here to introduce Lago Saunas. It's a Nordic-inspired mobile wellness concept that's poised to be a valuable asset to the port. At its heart, Lagom Sauna offers just a regular Scandinavian sauna experience. The word lagom is a Swedish word that embodies the concept just the right amount. So not too much, not too little, but perfectly balanced. And it's this philosophy that permeates through all aspects of our business, whether it be through the sauna design or through the serene atmosphere that we desire to cultivate. We see a significant synergy between our company and the port's mission to enhance the local economy, as well as visitor experience. We believe that local businesses like boutique hotels or Airbnb hosts could benefit greatly from this unique amenity. Increased foot traffic, bringing consistent weekly foot traffic down to the port in the off season would also benefit local businesses. Revenue generation, a new lease during off season would also be beneficial to the port, and minimal infrastructure impact. So we don't require permanent infrastructure. We are environmentally low impact, and we are highly flexible, so we can be moved or paused seasonally. Our sauna experience distinguishes itself from others by being a complete and well-balanced package. Unlike a lot of our competitors, our sauna trailer offers a climate-controlled changing and gathering facility. This is thoughtfully designed to allow our guests to transition from sauna to socializing, utilizing the entire time slot and just enhancing the overall experience. So essentially, you're not just in the sauna or outside in the elements. We anticipate operating approximately 8 to 10 carefully managed time slots per day. This would ensure the highest quality. And we're also not alone in recognizing the appeal of this type of business. I think it's really popular right now. Other businesses like ours, the Gathering House along the Deschutes River in Bend, or Wild House Saunas in Seattle boast well over 70% occupancy rate. We believe our business model to be robust and sustainable. We project 40 to 60% occupancy rate in the first season, and that would ensure our financial success, a target that we're confident in reaching given the appeal of our offerings and the potential location at the port. And then a little bit about the trailer itself, as you can see in the pictures. It's really pretty. So it's not an eyesore. It's 8.5 by 30 feet. We would not require any running water or gray water access. We're completely self-contained. We would only need a 40 to 50 amp electrical outlet. We wouldn't require any other resources from the port at all. It would be our commitment to only add value by providing a professionally safe and clean experience for all users. And then quickly, we did get the thumbs up from Jennifer at the city, as well as an insurance policy from Columbia Gorge Insurance. And if I didn't note, am I out of time? Almost. If I didn't note, our ideal operational season would not be in the summer at all. It would be in late fall to early spring. So thank you for your time. Thanks for considering this.
Thank you, Krista.
That was a mouthful.
Beautiful presentation. I appreciate it. Next, we have Miss Linda Maddox.
Linda Maddox, 3018 Dana Lane. And the first thing I want to do is to thank our chairman, Christy, and Kevin for including me in the discussion last week about what should be done and what is being thought of. It was really a cordial meeting, and I have looked at some files of historical things and haven't quite decided what to do, how to organize them, but I'll try to get that together. The proposed ordinance that we have in front of us today, you have in front of you, protects developed property from recreational uses. If you read section number 1A, the last sentence, and section number 2, you will see that. The ordinance was written to allow a commercial use, such as a hotel at the Marina Green. And I'm not sure that this was, the purpose overall, but that's what it does in terms of how it's written. And while we met, we talked about doing a master plan, a master plan of the area, and to get the community involved. And I just want to say, if you do a master plan, you need to look at the Marina Green as a whole. And it's just a piece of land. And you need to consider both developed and undeveloped lots, rather than just concentrating on those two. And trying to figure out what's the most appropriate is really where we're at this point. I hope we're together on that. I would suggest that at this point you just dismiss this ordinance for now, put it away, and that you figure out what you really want to do before you add an ordinance that may or may not apply, because then you have to go through the whole thing of, okay, now we're changing it again. Now we have to hear from the people again. It's just this, be better to get it as right as we can. The first time if we're going to do an ordinance, I'm very much against the ordinance that was proposed. And we did talk about that, I think, a little bit. Anyway, good luck with it. And I'm happy to help in any way. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. And now next I have Brian Rob.
Good copies for everybody. Good evening, or good river commission. I'll be kind of brief tonight. Just to figure out. I'm speaking tonight about the court's discussion of commercial development direction for Port Marine Park. I do appreciate Port President Christy Chapman and Port Executive Director Kevin Greenwood meeting with me and Linda Maddox last week to discuss ongoing proposals to deal with the future development of Port Marine Park. I feel our input is reflected in the staff recommendation brought forth in Director Greenwood's memo. I feel it is imperative that the Port Commission not adopt the amendments to the Port Marina Park ordinance as is being presented today. The amendments are premature, incomplete, and lack virtually any public input. It's extremely important that the will of the Port constituents be reflected in decisions regarding the future of our crown jewel, the Columbia River waterfront and Hood River. We only have one chance to get this right, and this amendment does not do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I really appreciate it. I noticed a couple people walked in, and I just wanted to see if anyone else was wanting to sign up for public comment or just here to listen. Okay. And with that being said, thank you everyone for your thoughtful comments. We'll follow up with those that's necessary after or throughout the week. And next we will go to the consent agenda. Barring no questions, can I get a motion for consent, please?
Move that we approve the entire consent agenda as written.
Can I get a second? Second. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, informational reports. Any commissioners have any questions on the monthly financial report or the Mount Hood Meadows memo? Barring not,
I think a couple of us do have a couple questions on the report.
okay, perfect.
So if you, first off, reports are great.
Thank you.
It allows us to ask questions. Okay, which may be good, may be bad. If you look at page 81 as an example, how would you expect us to use this report? What are the high points that you see looking at the report?
I think what I hope you gain from looking at this is to see so let me back up just a little bit. The board is responsible for the budget. We go through the whole budget process, you adopt a budget, and then you are actually responsible for it throughout the year. And it's been very difficult in the past for you to be responsible for it because you were not getting regular reports that showed that you are in compliance with the budget. So the first thing that I hope you take away is that management is also obviously monitoring the budget, but this shows you that you are in compliance with the budget at this point. And then that's why there are additional notes that I put on here or we'll put in the memo to point out areas where I'm watching it closer. And reasons why things may look like, for example, early in the year, we make our debt service payments, we make the principal payments. And so it looks like, oh my gosh, we're going to go over on debt service. But of course, we're not because the majority of money is paid early in the year. So those are examples of things that I notate so that as you go through the year, you can see that we're going to be fine. The other thing is to see how it is performing. Are we making budget, or are we having very large expenses and little or no revenue, which can be a problem. Sometimes we anticipate that, as has been noted by many people. The parks lose money, the industrial properties make money. So it's kind of a chance to look at that and to see how things are going. One of the other things with Oregon budget law is that it's very focused on expenditures, which is fine, except that you have to have revenue. You have to have some resource to cover those expenditures. So it doesn't do any good to budget for $1 million of expenditures if you don't also have $1 million of resources to cover those expenditures. So one of the other things is to go through and to look at it and to see if revenues are coming in within expectations and that expenditures are within expectations and that one or the other is not dramatically skewed. So those are the highlights, I guess, that I hope you take away from this.
And I did, and I get it. One of the things that I look at is, are we missing opportunity? In other words, one could ask, is it good to underrun your budget? Let's assume that you've got the revenue and you're hitting the target on revenue. But an expense, you're underrunning significantly. Is that good or is that bad?
And this report won't tell you that because you have to dig deeper into that. So for example, you will see that personal services, like in the general fund, is underrunning primarily because that turned into a contract instead of personal services. So contract expense has been higher. Another area that's interesting to look at from that point of view is capital outlay, because we've talked about these projects to generate more revenue, like the parking lots. And initially we were talking about storage units up at the Lower Mill property. If we're not getting those built, we're not going to make the money. And so those are the things to look at. Now there's reasons why we didn't spend as much this year as we thought we would, and we're certainly on track to spend it next year. But those are the kinds of things I think you can look at to see if we're taking advantage of opportunities or not.
Yeah, so I understand the report. It's not really a cash flow loaded report as far as year to date. It's pretty much everything is straight line as far as percent expended. So when I look, we're 75% complete with the year. And some accounts were at 51%. On the surface, you would say, hey, we're going to underrun. but without knowing the next level. Is it point loaded? Is it uniform? What's the funding or what's the spending profile? You really don't know. But I would like to see in these kinds of meetings that we have that kind of a discussion, big picture, because I personally believe if we're underrunning our budget, that's not necessarily good. Because we're losing opportunity to perhaps accelerate other capital work that could help us accelerate revenue generation. So, and I've never seen any discussion that we've had along that line, but I think you got a system that's maturing. I would really encourage us to put on the agenda 10-15 minutes to get your insight of where we truly are for the year. And we ought to be talking about, if it looks like it's going to be an underrun, then what work could we accelerate forward that then pulls revenue generation forward with it? You know, maybe next year or so, but we're making the investment now.
Yeah, I can jump in. I couldn't agree more. You know, I think that's what's great about this report, especially at this point in the year, because we're 75% of the way through. So we're getting pretty darn close to 100%. And so the year-to-date numbers are actually looking pretty solid. And so what I look at is separating the operating from the non-operating, because the operating breakdown is really what we need to do to keep the lights on, keep the bills paid. And those non-operating expenses like capital and grants, those should be kind of monitored a little bit separately. But I certainly agree. I think when you look in the breakdown, I think you're going to see some positive notes here.
And I've looked through the page.
Yes.
So I've got it all there. I just think it would be very helpful for the commission to really understand these documents. And I think it's going to take a little bit more than here they are. Do you have any questions? I think Debbie, you need to kind of help lead a discussion, and it doesn't have to be very long, but lead a discussion of what is the report telling you specifically, where can we accelerate things? Because I believe underspending is almost as bad as overspending because of lost opportunity.
Would that be something that you would recommend for maybe a secondary annual budget meeting where you kind of,
Christie, I think you ought to have that meeting
or like a
with
planning
us
with us, okay?
at least quarterly. So you have a good sense and feel where the port's going. And you'll have some time to react. Either accelerating work or slowing work down.
Mhm.
And it could go either way.
One of the challenges is accelerating work. That's
the fun one.
Right.
You get out your lighter, huh? Well, I do think it's good to think about, and maybe you can come back to us and let us know your thoughts on this. Okay, sounds good. How's everyone else doing? Tor, I saw you writing some stuff down. Any questions?
I'm good. I think the thing that throws me sometimes is that, as Kevin was pointing out, the differentiation, I mean, once we take out some of the non-operating, like we had that building sale, which we didn't go through with, you kind of pull that out. And then Debbie's very nice, massive contingency for non-operating expenses, you kind of pull that out. And then you look at the general, and the revenue is 8.5 million and the expenses are 7.9 million. So it all makes sense. It's just, you have to step back and do that work. Yeah, so maybe like a little
Cliff notes?
note, like here's how to read one of these things would be good for some of us that are a little slower. I love that.
But you brought up a really good point, the $6 million contingency, do we need it? And if we don't,
What could we do?
where should we,
Well, so that, just a reminder on that, last year when we were preparing the budget, you were talking about selling Big 7. But it wasn't we weren't sure that was gonna happen. So I needed to show it in the budget, but I did not want to show that as money we could spend, because until we sell it, we can't spend it. But by putting it in contingency, it gave us the ability to show it in the budget, but to not say, oh, we have this money to spend. No, we don't. It's actually down in contingency. So until if we had gone through with the sale, then we would have actually recognized it as revenue. And then if we had a plan, because again, one-time revenues should be focused on one-time expenditures. You don't want that to fall into operations necessarily, unless it's an actual conscious decision. So I did do that on purpose for that.
Further questions at this time about it?
Okay. Okay, and we'll move on to your report on the bridge monitoring.
Yeah, absolutely. So I
He's gonna
think,
talk about.
oh, I guess if you want to talk about the Method Meadows,
Oh, I didn't know if you had.
or so I guess we already discussed that. So really, if you wanted, you could just talk about the,
Did you want to talk about the mountain? That's a good question.
No, I'm just thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for your work on that.
Yeah.
I appreciate
A
it.
lot.
That's
We're moving it forward, light the fire.
Yep.
So Patty, do you want to tee up the PowerPoint presentation? I guess I can come up there and talk to it as well. So there's really two things for this discussion. I'm kind of piggybacking on the bridge monitoring request, but since we had this on the agenda, I thought we could eventually talk about what happened yesterday. So do you want to talk about the event yesterday first, or do you want to talk about the bridge monitoring first?
Get rid of the bridge monitoring first.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So, and Commissioner Fox is very, very much involved with this. The port was approached by the Bridge Authority to place bridge monitoring equipment, fairly significant expenditure on our existing bridge, in part to develop a baseline so that when bridge construction begins, specifically the pier placement, drilling or vibrating or whatever it is that they're doing, they can then evaluate motion on the bridge compared to the baseline, just to be able to make sure that the existing bridge is safe.
Let me.
Yes, feel free to jump. Yeah, jump in.
We could have said, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. Okay, but we took a different approach as we're designing the new bridge. We want to make sure that whatever happens on the new bridge, the old bridge is not impacted. We got to keep it open. So we decided early on, pushed hard early on to instrument the current bridge such that as we do test pile program on the new bridge, driving piles into the ground, since this bridge is not grounded on rock, it's in sand and gravel, we want to make sure that nothing causes liquefaction and we lose a pier on the current bridge or it starts to move. The way to do that is to put some instrumentation on various elements going across the bridge. We'll constantly monitor it. We'll be able to tell whether the pier is moving, shifting. We'll be able to tell whether it's sinking. There's some other sensors that we'll be looking at. We'll put meteorological system up on the top of the bridge so we can get wind and so on, and it'll be constantly monitored. So we'll be able to see just the normal movement of the bridge versus what happens if we start pounding on piles or doing drill shafts. And if we see during the test program that we got a problem, we've got time to come up with an alternate approach. But the purpose of it is solely to protect the current bridge.
And this has been approved already by the Bridge Authority, correct?
Yes, and now the other clarification in the write-up here, it says the port to assist in cost. We are not asking, the authority is not asking for any sharing of cost by the port. It's all to the authority.
With the funds that we'd already. Where's the money coming from?
From our grants and states and
So they're just asking for access.
Yes.
What's it?
So basically, the authority is just asking for access to the bridge to provide information we should want anyway.
You should.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So
That's what it says.
So we would like to bring an intergovernmental agreement to the commission. In fact, one has been drafted already. Our legal's done the first review. I think it's at the Bridge Authority's legal. So I would think we're planning on having that come to you in June. While we were, so the port's bridge engineer sat in with the meetings with the HNTB and Kiewit group, and I'm not sure if a lot of that information would be truly beneficial to the port, aside from just, making sure that the bridge is safe during construction of the new one. But it did make sense that based on last June's event, the bridge strike, that maybe looking at putting some monitors of the ports on the bridge so that if there is significant movement at a certain milestone, it can ping Ryan or his crew. So we did, as part of this discussion with the Bridge Authority, HDR is simply looking at a quote to put probably 4 to 6 sensors on the bridge so that if there are significant movements, either sinking or lateral movements, if it's over a certain level, staff can get pinged. And so if it's in the middle of the night or something like that, it's just another way to.
That feels redundant to what Commissioner Fox just said, if they were doing anyway. So what?
No, it's different sensors. So what we, early on, when we decided we wanted to instrument up the current bridge, we asked the question, since we're putting this system out there anyway, is there any additional sensors that the port would like to add, your cost, that would give you information that HDR may need in analyzing the health of the bridge?
Okay.
And the answer came back, no. So we're proceeding forward with you guys' approval. We'll instrument up the bridge, and of course, we'll share information.
But the separate one would be the port's equipment that we own. We got to get a price for it. But depending on what that price is, we'll bring it back. And if it makes sense and it's not terribly expensive, it might be just a nice way to monitor bridge movement.
Seems like we might be able to make it do if they're monitoring wind movement, raising, lower, if they're monitoring all of that, it seems like all of the information that you guys are gathering.
Well, I think it's also important that the equipment be the ports. That this is if it makes sense for us to do this, that it's the ports equipment. It's really important to differentiate that the monitoring equipment that would be on the bridge would be the construction team's equipment. Because there's going to be a lot of potential issues with liability or who's responsible for installing the equipment. It wouldn't be the port that would be installing the Bridge Authority's equipment.
But
So
here's
how
a
does
question,
the-
would the Bridge Authority be okay with just making the information stream available to the board?
We've already done that. We've agreed to it.
So that's just a discussion, a decision we'd have to
Sure.
contemplate. Because if we're getting that information,
We don't need the equipment.
maybe we don't need our own separate.
Well, I
equipment.
think, I think the issue is there's several schools of thought here. Okay. One school of thought is put some strain gauges up on the steel structure so you can see real movement of what's going on those members. I believe the position is HDR is not necessary. And I think Kevin has said that, I don't know if he's reached out to ODOT, but ODOT is not requiring any of this thus far. So it becomes an issue. We don't have an engineering model of the bridge. So if you see a strain gauge, things moving around, to really understand it, you'd have to go through this integrated model to figure it out. And that's going to cost a lot of money. Now, the authority has to do that. For us to take down the current bridge, we're going to have to put together an engineering design model of the old one, but we're not planning on doing that several years.
But the request is simply to do the further research, and the research will tell us, is it feasible to actually put a string with some,
Yeah, I thought
Weights
the
on
decision was already been
or-
made, your recommendation.
Yeah, well, that's our recommendation, that we will definitely want to support the bridge authority with an IGA to let them get up on the bridge, who knows, I don't even know if they've completed the scoping of the equipment.
We're getting close. We want to get that instruments up on the bridge, before July. Because we want a full year summer. How that bridge is going.
Which is why we want to bring the IGA to the Port Commission in June, so we can get it.
So Kevin, my question, because this particular recommendation here, I mean, based on the discussions that I was a part of involving this, HDR was saying, I mean, he mentioned he'd just kind of take a look, but is this asking for, financial support to pay them to go do some official research, or?
So we've got HDR we have a master services agreement with HDR, and so they're helping us. They're not putting a lot of hours, a lot of calories into this effort.
Yeah.
And so they're just working under their MSA, not on any specific work order. And so what Michael is doing is just looking at some equipment that would belong to the port, and see if it would make sense for the port to install equipment.
At one point in time, though, he didn't seem to think it was important that we go down this path. So did that change?
No, that's why I think he's still doing the research on the movement for the ports tracking. And he has not developed anything yet. There's no decision being asked of you this evening.
Okay.
So this is really just an informational report. But the idea being, would it make sense to have a smaller setup, because the setup that the bridge authority is going to be putting on the bridge is very expansive.
Okay.
I think for tracking the lift span and doing a smaller set of monitoring, we'll see what that cost is and share it with you. And if it makes sense for us to monitor that, then we can certainly approve the contract. But there's nothing that says that we have to do it.
right, but I do think for the public, for the future, I agree. Everyone's gonna want to know that bridge is in the right spot.
Yeah, so the reason why I pushed this integrated approach is that the guts of the system can be used with any sensor. So if we're gonna put this system in place and with a bunch of sensors that the authority needs, it's pretty easy to add some sensors that you guys may want. To me, it makes no sense putting a different system in just because it's port owned. Economically, to me, that's foolish. We're all here together trying to protect the bridge. It shouldn't matter who owns this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment.
Agreed.
So,
Okay, so more information later.
Yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
we're all in support. of
Yeah, and
the
expect an
bridge.
IGA at the June meeting.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Okay, and then we go on to.
Yeah, so we had a little event, what I would say was it was a very superficial surface abrasion on the piers. So this happened about 1:45 yesterday. Next slide, please. So yesterday we received, actually 911 received a call from a White Salmon citizen that had noticed that the shaver barges had made contact with the inside of the northernmost lift span, the Washington side lift span. And 911 ended up contacting the sheriff's office. Next slide. And so 911 contacted the Marine Deputy Joel Carmody, and he invited port staff. It was Ryan, myself, and Ryan's superintendent. Next slide. And this is a video of the pier. You'll notice that there's a lot of marks on this. There's a scarring at the top of the photo there. That's not the one from yesterday, but that's just kind of shows you the nature of this pier. And one other item that I thought was kind of interesting about the pier is if you notice, it's almost like a teardrop. There's a point and there's actually some reinforced steel
It's angle.
angle iron to and I thought that was an interesting item. But let's go ahead and run this video and you can see on the other side, you'll see the markings. Right here. So it looked like about 18 inches under the water and I don't know, 6 to 8 feet above the water. So that was the identified area once we got out there on the boat to inspect this. The next slide. So after that, Deputy Cremati proceeded to approach the 4 barges escorted by the tugboat Cascades. If you look in the picture, interestingly enough, it anchored off to the Washington side. So it wasn't in the federal channel. It was off to this side for about 40 minutes. And it was trying to get some of its equipment repaired before it ended up continuing upriver. Next slide. Oh, yeah, it was pretty choppy out there. The reason I like this video is we actually get to see Deputy Cremati. There he is. So he was very gracious, took us out. And once we got out to the barge, next slide, we came right up to very close to the barge and you could, there's foot markers along the side of the barge. And the barges were floating very high on the water. So they were empty. They weren't full of grain. These are wheat barges for the most part. But you can see these horizontal scrape marks. There's about 3 or 4 along there. So those were the scrape marks that were made on the barge. There were no dents or anything that was significant to the barge. Next slide. And so after that, I did talk to John Helberg, who's the Shaver Vice President of Operations. And so he had been told by the captain that the winds were recorded at 35 to 40 miles per hour, that there were barge wires that keep the structure, the barges, there were 4 barges that were underway. And so the reason that they were anchored for 40 minutes was to re-secure those lines. After the lines were resecured, the empty barges continued upriver to Biggs, Kennewick, and the Snake River. Next slide. So as you can see, the impact that was caused was surface marring. We did contact quite a few folks after the event, including John Helberg with Shaver. We talked to Mike Mitchell, our structural engineer of record at HDR. I did have a conversation with the captain of the port in Sector Astoria. Ryan had email exchanges with the ODOT bridge team as well. And there were a number of media requests as well. So really just kind of wanted to summarize that. I believe that's the last slide, more maybe. So just that's an update on what happened yesterday. I don't know how much more questions we have, but certainly can try to answer any questions that you might have. Or Ryan.
Concern that I have is this was a near miss. Luck would have it, they were unloaded coming upriver against the current and they still hit the bridge. That should have been the easiest thing for them to maneuver. Thank God they weren't coming downriver, and I understand the wind and the lightness of the load.
Yeah, I disagree because when they're light and they're up out of the water that much, they're like big sails and they're actually harder to control than when they're sitting deeper in the water.
I think it still comes back to the same critical issue. What caused it?
Yeah.
And what are they gonna do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And what were the qualifications of the captain that was running the tug? Is he or she relatively new? or what's the lessons learned that we can gather from that? Something like this, I would expect a Coast Guard, some kind of a report that comes out. And this is a near miss. It could have been a whole lot worse.
I think that's a good idea in the effort of transparency to the public. Could we request for an incident report from them?
Yeah, in fact, when I talked to the captain of the fort, they've concluded the investigation. And then I also did, Deputy Cremati did file a report as well, so I did put a request in for that.
And then maybe we can just post that on our website
Sure.
so people are interested in see.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think would be helpful, so we can learn something off of it, hopefully they learn something off of it. And then we can educate the public that, hey, this was a scrape, but
Yeah, absolutely. But it also goes to show why the new bridge is needed
Oh, yeah.
to increase more than
because the
double
span
this.
over that channel will be almost double the length.
So anyway, I thought you might be interested in some of those images. So
Good job.
yeah, thanks to Ryan for
Yeah.
getting us out there. Thanks, Ryan.
Kevin, no repair work is needed?
No, there's nothing of, short of going out there and scrubbing the little bit of, hull paint off there.
Well, the one thing that he did mention is that Ryan and his guys got up on the piers or looked at the lift span to make sure nothing got out of alignment. And you satisfied yourself that it didn't move,
Great.
or if it did move, it moved back.
Yes. All gaps look the same.
Good. Thank you for your persistent monitoring. And again, with that historical data, it's helping you monitor in the future.
I'm sorry, I got one more kind of complaint. I'm sorry. What bothers me about this is Shaver, unless you correct me, did not self-report this to us.
It was probably about 20 minutes later. We had a phone call from 911 to our emergency phone, probably about 4 minutes after it happened. Which was nice because I was able to look at the camera and see, how hard it really hit, which made me feel a little better about the situation. Then we got out of the boat. Daryl was in contact with Joel, who took us out on the boat probably 10, 15 minutes after and got out and looked right at it. I don't know how many phone calls they had to make, but after 20 minutes, they did call our emergency line, let us know what happened, but 911 did call us.
That's a good follow-up as well. Maybe we could report to all of our company a request of.
My gut feel is that they wouldn't have called if
Who
people
called them
weren't
first?
watching.
Yes, exactly.
Reason to have more monitoring. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next we will move on to the next discussion item, which is the marina ordinance. Okay.
Let's see here. Let me get my.
And all commissioners have read the ordinance. Had questions answered.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on this. This has been discussed over the last 3 or 4 months. And this is really looking at the 2 buildings, the DMV building and the old chamber building, Marina East and West complex, really to look at ways to redevelop and maximize the cash flow for that area. As you know, we had a lot of public comment during this time. The draft ordinance that's included in the packet attempted to add definitions, also to add a definition for undeveloped, and then to focus on the bridge replacement to make sure that that would be allowed. We discussed quite a bit about the land and water conservation fund grants and the restrictions of the land to a pretty small spot, about 2.5 acres, where those 2 buildings are located. That's the only place that could be developed. The Marina Green will never be developed. and frankly, the whole balance of the area because of those restrictions. The Bridge Authority is currently going through a mitigation process due to the impact of the bridge on the same site, and as Mike can attest, it's been a heavy lift. I do think that the public outreach that Commissioner Chapman and I did with public was helpful. It was, I think we need to do some more of it before proceeding with this ordinance. And so I definitely think that the fact that we're on the cusp of doing a strategic business plan update in 2026 seems like a really good opportunity to communicate fully with the entire public about the port's financial situations and the opportunities that are there, and to see what types of things the public might want to see there that could also generate revenue for the port. So I think that our recommendation, or my recommendation, is to incorporate the redevelopment of the Marina East and West complex, and in fact, frankly, all of the recreational assets into the strategic business plan process, not just looking at what can we redevelop, but how can we enhance recreational opportunities and citizens and guests' access to the water as a key component of the next strategic business plan. And so a final ordinance would come out of that process that would refine and define the issues that we're discussing today. And in the meantime, we've got some ancillary issues, which are very significant, is we've got tenants in those buildings. And so there's been a little reluctance to renew the lease with DMV. And frankly, we've been in the point of like moving tenants out of the Marina East building, just with the uncertainty on the bridge replacement. But frankly, it might make sense at this point just to give the community time, get those leases renewed for 5 years so that any tenant improvements in the DMV building specifically can be recouped by the state, and have a longer lead time for really implementing a grander vision for this part of the port. So it's like, what does that mean as far as a recommendation? I guess I'd be interested to hear your feedback, but really it's to hold off on moving forward with the ordinance, make it a focus of the strategic business plan, and look to renew these leases so that they can end in 2031 as we ramp up to really what a more organized thought about what to do.
How would you handle the bridge?
So if by a year from now, the ordinance could be brought back forth.
So before we have the discussion, I want to ask one question to Ashley, and then I want to let each board member kind of ask their questions and give their thoughts. But my first question to Ashley is there a reason that the board should, I know that the ordinance needs to be cleaned up, that it is ambiguous, and there needs to be something to help us obviously move forward with the bridge. Are we under a definitive time crunch of we need to get something cleaned up in the next 4 months? Do we have a little bit of wiggle room on time?
I'm not sure of any specific timing here. I guess the only timing really would depend on when you were to commence this bridge reconstruction effort, right?
Okay.
So you would want to space a ordinance adoption with enough time to permit the commencement of reconstruction, right? So, 2 readings plus 30 days plus whatever other conversations you would want to have prior to your first start of that reconstruction.
Okay, perfect. And then, so I'm gonna go down the table. And Ben, would you like to start? Because I know that you have time commitments that I want to be very mindful of.
Thank you. Sure. I do think anything that happens in any of our properties, we're going to be dealing with this on the waterfront side as well, are going to need to involve a lot more community outreach, community input, than we have in the past. I also know that clear direction has been given by the commission to staff to take a look at individual areas of the port and report back to us what you've done. In this particular instance, we know there's only one area of this piece of the port that can be developed, and it's one that already is. We're not talking about developing anything. It's currently not developed, really. It's already done. There's already a parking lot. You might have a better parking lot. There's already buildings. You might have a different building if you develop it. It's nothing new. I disagree with staff's recommendation. I think that we need to look at a property that is losing, I believe, $85,000 is what we were told that is per year. And the recommendation to put it off for 6 years is $500,000 of loss by doing nothing. I would like to see what might be possible there. I don't know what that is. It might be nothing. There might, I don't know, but I would like to see what's possible. And then I would like to involve the community in what is wanted, what is needed, what people, what is important to them, and see if there's a match. And we need to do that. And it just goes back to looking at these things before 26, not waiting till 31. So my preference would be to take a look at what is possible and be very, very clear about what we don't want to do, which is touch anything else. It's not even on the table.
I agree with Ben and the fact that we need to figure out how we can not lose money in those buildings. And I think that's something we can do in conjunction with holding off on the ordinance in order to have a really solid strategic business plan with a lot of constituent input. So I would vote on option one, but also consider how, like, really looking into the Marina East and West buildings and how we can make up that deficit.
I would say, again, from a bridge point of view, it's imperative that we get the bridge piece of this thing resolved, because we're moving into what we call phase 1B in September, which is full design. To do the design, the designers have to know where the bridge is going to land. So we've got plans in place to do land acquisition on both sides of the river within the next 6 to 9 months, so we can lock that down. I don't know this to be true, but I could certainly see where funding could be restrained because we don't have the two ends of the bridge locked up. So I would urge us as a minimum to clean up the language in the ordinance as it relates to the bridge. And I would do that now. As far as the other area, I like the idea of putting together an accelerated strategic plan of what do we want to do with that particular area. Do lots of reviews with the community to make sure that they're on board with what the vision is. And then go ahead as a second step, if it's needed, adjust the ordinance a second time. And then push forward. But I agree, waiting 6 years to decide what you're going to do with that south end there, that's ridiculous. I think we've got to go a lot faster than that.
Great. We had 3 choices: to do nothing about the ordinance, which was not really an option given the bridge situation, to repeal the ordinance outright, which we can do, and we chose not to do. And we chose to amend the ordinance, which our lawyer put a lot of work into. I'm in favor of today adopting this ordinance. And I will point out that this ordinance is not tantamount to any development. I'm still very much in favor of lots of community engagement. We are going to be re-upping our strategic plan in the latter half of this year, envisioning what we're doing with all sorts of different port property. But I don't see any reason really not to adopt this ordinance. It cleans things up, and so I'm in favor of doing that tonight.
Oh, I think a lot of really good arguments have been made. Is it safe to assume that if the ordinance is adopted as is, well, we still have a public process to go through. It couldn't be.
It'd be like Ashley mentioned in 2 months.
Yeah. So we still have a public process. So if tonight we move forward and say, let's move forward. Or even if we said, maybe there is some wording that could get polished up, so for some clear definition, we could do it at the next meeting. So that would satisfy a time commitment. It would satisfy moving forward on the adoption. So where could we, not compromise, but where could we ensure to the public that the strategic business plan is going to help drive what that would mean for those future buildings?
One thought would be some type of a moratorium until afterwards, on actual redevelopment.
A more like a moratorium is, are you saying back to the 6 years?
Or whatever it might be, you could have something like the moratorium until after the strategic business plan is completed. It wouldn't have to be 6 years, it could be 1 year, 2 years.
Or something like, we won't make any kind of development on that particular chunk of land until such time as the business or the strategic plan has been developed, shared with the, and will commit to community involvement. Something like that. I think what the community is concerned about is we're just going to go off and do whatever we want to do.
Right. And that's not at all, I believe, the intent of anyone.
We're not, any development that even potentially happens is gonna have lots of community input. And if, you know, I've spent the last 2 months talking to people up and down the valley about this ordinance and this issue and kind of delineating what's involved and talking about the overall finances of the port. And, you know, from my own talking to people, and I mean random people too, like I'll ask my server at the restaurant, "You live in Hood River? What do you think about, you know?" And they're like, "Oh God, this poor guy won't stop talking to me." You know, trying to get a feel for this. And I appreciate it. You know, when I started serving, my #1 priority was and has always been, what can I do to best serve my constituents? And so the quality of life issues and the waterfront issues are obviously very important, but so is the port's mission, founding mission, which is economic development. That is also important. How can we provide good jobs? How can we promote the economic vibrancy of this community? But again, it's not like we do that behind closed doors. I mean, we're a public agency, and there's going to be input. But as far as the ordinance, I guess I'm just in support of the ordinance as we've amended it. So I think we should proceed with it, and then I'm fine, you know, to make a commitment to engage the public and be part of a visioning process. I mean,
We should be doing that anyway.
that's right. That's part of why we exist.
Okay. Well, keeping that in mind, knowing that even if we did say move forward with the ordinance, there is still ample opportunity for the public to come in to give their input. I would like to also say, regardless of whatever the vote, which way the vote goes, that strategic business or that strategic plan, master plan committee, I believe needs to get immediately formed. We need to immediately start having that conversation of what is the potential for down there.
Sure.
We're wasting time by having people present ideas to us, and we should just be having it be a group process.
Would you open that up to the community to be involved in that committee as part of the strategic business plan?
I mean, yes, obviously. When you say open it up, do we call a casting call for it?
Well, yeah.
I don't know how
Form
best
up
that works.
Form up a committee
Yeah,
to look at usage of the land that we've got, and not just this piece out here in Marina Green. Get their input on the whole thing.
yes, absolutely. I mean, naturally, if a lot of them are going to come from the waterfront advisory committee, is those are people that have expressed interest already, and then people that are obviously involved in the ordinance, I would want them to have a seat at the table.
So if we do approve the ordinance, what happens with the leases?
Oh, that's the second question I wanted to talk about.
Say that again. What
The
was-
leases is another thing that we need to do, because I do agree with Kevin. We can't have businesses not knowing what's happening, and we need to give them a fair and
Do they end on the
Not
same
one,
day?
right?
Do all those leases end on the same day?
I believe, Tom or Amanda, I think the DMV lease ends at the December 31 of this year.
It would. Even if, and this isn't a proposal, even if you pass this ordinance and then decide, let's go out to do something tomorrow with the commitment to engage the community to the level that we will need to, nothing is going to be happening there until for the end of 26, maybe. At the very minimum, I think you could grant an extra year on any lease and not get in trouble. As far as the timing thing, but then that would be an accelerated timing that we're not proposing. So I don't know, that's such a big.
The other aspect is, I mean, if we sign leases with people, we honor whatever that agreement is. There's no, I'm not sure.
Well, I guess the reason I was concerned about DMV, it's
wanna
one thing
renew.
if they're just renewing. They want to expand, take the entire building, put some tenant improvements.
Okay.
If they're gonna probably need 5 years to recoup their.
Okay, so
investment.
they want to embark on a project
Yeah.
with that building. So that's gonna be part of this process that we need to get going and figure out, obviously.
Where are we in that building? Are we recovering? Is it paying for itself?
No.
How much would it have to go up?
Tom, do you have anything to say on the income side? I know you've been talking to DMV.
If we could eliminate or have them pay or pick up their. I think it's janitorial and utility section of it, it's gonna help out a little bit, but in order to make it pencil, I mean, you're gonna need to have them expand it to full space. It's not, you're looking at 1,000 square foot tenant.
Well, I think that that's a separate conversation from if we're gonna, so as a commission, can we decide that we wanna move forward with the ordinance with a commitment to the community that along with that, a solid commitment for the strategic business plan and waterfront master plan will immediately start. We probably need to realistically ask staff, what is a good timeline for that process? Is it 1 year? Is it, so that's something that you guys will have to think
Yeah, we'll
about.
have to put together a procurement.
Get back to that. And then the last piece would be what is going to be reasonable, fair, and what is it that the tenants, the existing tenants want? What would make them feel comfortable? Maybe we work that way, because maybe different tenants have different needs.
To me, it sounds like an extension of 1 year, maximum 2 years. You're not gonna do much prior to 2 years.
Well, hopefully by 2 years, we have a kind of a plan of what's
Yes.
gonna happen with that building, which may be. If we know that there's going to be commercial space, maybe they get the first, the first decision to move
So-
forward to the new space. I don't
So
know.
to help them, maybe what you do is you give them a 1 year extension with a potential 1 year option.
Mutual option, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Ashley, you had a,
Yeah, thank you. So I'm hearing two different conversations here. One is regarding what we do to clarify or not clarify existing ordinance language. And the second one is what do we do with private contractual relationships that you have with these tenants on port property? And they don't necessarily have to be connected, right? We already have this existing ordinance. This language is intended to simply clarify the existing ordinance language. And if the DMV, I'm hearing, may want to do some sort of expansion to their existing building, if they want to be able to fund that, arguably under the existing ordinance language, it's not clear if that would even be permitted, right? The existing ordinance language says that modifications of existing buildings are permitted, but it doesn't clarify renovations. So one of the goals of this new ordinance is to permit renovations of buildings on this port marina property, right? So arguably it would allow the DMV to continue in their existing building. It would just depend on, you know, the separate contractual relationship that the port has with their individual tenants and what they do or do not want to do in those, you know, individual situations. But that I see as a separate conversation from the ordinance itself.
I think the helpful part is the 1 year extension with a possible second year.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that is helpful for staff as we sit down and talk to them.
And then we could have individual conversations with the tenants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
To
absolutely.
really find out how that works for them.
Right,
But-
because their lease is up into December.
And it might not, so, yeah.
And just to be clear, those conversations can happen whether or not this ordinance is adopted.
So just to recap, so the draft ordinance that's in the packet. What are, no changes, move that forward for first reading in June.
Like that.
Okay. Is there consensus then? All right, we'll start the process and get that taken care of.
Okay, and then can we also, in conjunction with that, start the committee?
We can, it's gonna take a while to get.
No, that's what I'm saying,
the RFP,
yeah.
So it'll
It'll be a little bit, yes, but I wanna definitely make a commitment to the community that these things go kind of hand in hand. We
Yeah, we
have to
could-
clean up,
Yeah,
but then moving forward, there's nothing that the court is gonna decide without the public.
sure, and we can put something in the recitals that alludes to that.
Okay,
I think I think we need to put an article out. That here's what we've decided and here's how we're protecting both sides. Just to get it out there from us instead of somebody else. It's an allegation.
I should call the paper. Where's Richard? Okay, so if that gives the consensus that you need.
Yes, very helpful. We'll bring that back in June.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. And then with that, I do believe.
ED report real quick.
Yes, you were.
Just a couple of things that weren't in the written report. At the last airport committee, there was some discussion about combining the tax lots at the airport. There's 6 different tax lots, which actually kind of makes some of our analysis a little bit more complicated as far as determining a good prorated expenses on our pass-through expenses, taxes, insurance, those types of things. And so I did reach out to the county, and we can actually combine those tax lots. It'll need to be 2 tax lots because they're on different section maps, but that should make things much simpler. So I think if there's consensus to move forward with that, I think it makes a lot of sense. It will make it a little easier to manage the airport.
One
Yeah.
minor question.
Sure.
is, do you see that we would ever want to do something specific with a particular lot? In other words,
No, and frankly,
it's not, and I.
there's so much FAA grant money. It's going to be very, very difficult. A good question. Then just, we are starting to we're starting to receive offers for the Lower Hanover Mill property. And so we will have an executive session before the June 17th meeting to get those, to review those offers and to discuss next steps. So that's taking place. WHAM is having an open house tomorrow at noon to showcase their newest museum expansion. I believe Commissioner Beaker is attending, but if any of you want to attend, that's noon tomorrow at WHAM. And then you met Amanda Rose, our new property manager. We're very happy to have her on board. And that is it for the executive director's report.
Question,
Yes.
the timber grazing land mentioned.
Yes.
Is that land that intersects with the Twin Tunnels Trail?
Yes. Yeah, and there's I think there's about 6 or 7 different parcels. It's likely going to be a difficult one because it's on slope and the trail goes through it.
Yeah.
But we do have those parcels out there.
Could we do that as 6F?
That's probably already considered recreation.
Is it?
So, but we can certainly look into it.
And how about this? We've got a little sliver of land, where we had that more accident, you know, on the trail.
That's the Indian Trail property that we leased to the Hood River Valley Parks and Rec.
Well, is that one that you consider selling?
Probably not.
Why?
Because it's a highly used trail. There had been some discussions at one point about, donating it to the Parks and Recs, and there isn't a lot of interest in doing that. So I think right now there's a feeling that with the port owning it and leasing it to the Parks and Rec District, that there's a little bit of sharing the risk with that asset. But no, I don't think it.
I don't know. I personally think somebody ought to look at that. Is it worth the risk that we've got for what you got there?
It's an old water line. It's like a linear, there's no square footage.
So why do we want it?
Yeah, because it's a recreational asset. Really. And it would be very, I think, problematic to find somebody that would be interested.
No, I would almost say, think about giving it to the park. They've got everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give it to them, get it off our books, get it off our liability.
They don't have to take it.
Yeah.
I think that's more of the issue, is that they don't have to take it.
We've had those conversations.
Okay. Stay on.
Another quick question.
Yes, sir.
On your DD report. You're talking about the easements behind Big Seven for the storm and sewer improvements. It says the plan is to charge approximately 40,000 for the storm easement, so that goes to the city.
No, the city would pay
pays us.
for
The city, right?
We would charge the city.
Yeah, we
yes.
would charge-
You are correct, yes.
and that would be for preliminary design, 60% design of parking lots in that area.
Perfect.
Super, thank you.
Okay, next we have our actions items. Action item A is the second reading of ordinance number 28 by title only. Bylaws for the Port of Hood River Board of Commissioners. Whereas 198.540. Copies of this ordinance are available at the office of the district.
Yes, so page 115, there are some recommended motions.
I would move that we approve the reading of ordinance number 28 by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for the record, Port of Hood River ordinance number 28, an ordinance creating bylaws for the Port of Hood River Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Second motion,
Oh, second motion?
Do you need something notarized because I have to leave?
not from you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 28 and ordinance creating bylaws for the Port of Hood River Board of Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
great, they'll be in effect in 30 days. Commissioners Chapman, Fox will get notarized signatures here shortly.
Okay, any other commission calls, anything from commissioners? Barring none, adjourn. Thanks all.
Great, thank you.